Yes guys, welcome back to another video here on the Andy channel. I'm back in my front room, my office, my dining room, my girls' playroom for another episode of Tuesday Talks. Today's episode is with Tom Billson. Tom is the under-23 goalkeeper at Coventry City. He signed his first professional contract last year. He had a breakthrough year. He's risen through the ranks at Coventry after signing schoolboy forms at Leicester earlier on. So we're going to talk to him about his experiences so far, what it's like training for the first team, how does he prepare for a game, and loads of other questions that have come in. So let's get into the video. All right, so just to give a little bit of background to you and where you are at the moment within your career. You're quite early in. You moved from Leicester to Coventry. You were a schoolboy at Leicester, moved to Coventry. You've gone through the ages at Coventry, signed your first professional contract last year, and you're the under-23 goalkeeper at Coventry at the moment.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, yeah.
Sound about right?
Yeah, that's perfect, yeah.
Brilliant. Right, so we're just going to chat for the next half hour or so, just about what your journey's been like, about just generally how you've come to where you are right now.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely fine.
Right. So actually, first question I'm going to ask is just about lockdown, because I'm assuming that you guys haven't trained, you haven't done anything for a little while. You've all been, your routine's been upside down a little bit. So how's all that been?
Well, we've had individual programs from the sports science at Coventry. And it's just been like running based, really.
So what sort of stuff are you doing then when it's running based?
So look, mainly for goalkeepers. So I've got my own jump program to follow, just so I can stay nice and powerful. And sprints, not a lot of long distance stuff. Mainly just short and sharp sprints, runs, box to box, things like that. Just to try and stay sharp, really.
So how long are you sort of doing a day of training now?
Well, I think it changes week to week. I always try and do something every day, whether it's a running base session or something with a ball, or even if it's just a walk or a cycle. I always try and do something to stay busy.
So how much do you think it's worthwhile doing that sort of stuff? I mean, how closely can you replicate what you're doing in training on your own when you're doing those sort of sessions?
It's difficult to replicate, but I just think it's about staying fit, really, and just staying like positive in your mind more than anything else, so that when you do go back into the real thing, you're not blowing too much. You don't obviously get injured or anything like that because you've stayed relatively busy. So I think it's more about preparing yourself to go into training rather than trying to replicate training itself.
Right. So have you missed it?
Yeah, of course, yeah. It wasn't too bad the first couple of weeks, a bit of a breather. But yeah, once that week or so went, yeah, definitely missed it. I can't wait to get back.
Have you got any dates at the moment? Is there anything out there?
I think from what I gather, the EFL are deciding as we speak on what the crack is going to be with League One. But we had a Zoom conference today about safety in and around the training ground, so that when we're ready to train again, then we can do it as soon as possible. Right.
So that sounds pretty positive though in terms of getting back.
Yeah. It's definitely getting closer each week, hopefully. Definitely.
Right. So if we take this back to your very start, then. What sort of ages were you when you first started playing football? Did you play for a team? Sort of talk us through that from the start.
When I first started, I was 7, 8. Played for my local side, Gruber Juniors. 7-a-side, obviously. And yeah, I was terrible out pitch, so I got shoved in goal. And yeah, I kind of went from there. Just started young.
So you started off out pitch though, you weren't automatically straight in goal?
No, I wanted to be out and outfielder. Yeah, I had no interest in playing in goal as a little kid. But it's just where I got shoved. I got shoved in goal, out the way. And,
what positions?
Always fancied myself as a winger.
Did you?
Down the wing, yeah. Yeah, more than anything.
Have you got any pace about you whatsoever?
No, not now. Slow as anything.
So you wanted to be a winger, then it was decided for you, or did you decide to go in goal?
I think, what was my manager's name? Was Rob, I think. Rob put me in goal for a few games. Still wasn't having it. But yeah, I was half decent at it, so I stuck at it. And then I went to a better Sunday League side, Ayleston Park. I was there for a while before I then went to Leicester's Youth as a young schoolboy.
So was it your decision then? Was it a case that, all right, actually, I'm pretty decent in goal, I'm going to stick with it? Is that where it came from then? It was the decision that actually you were all right about it, so
Yeah,
you're going to carry on with it?
I'd say so, yeah. Probably the more I played, the more I enjoyed it. And then I decided to sort of stick at it, definitely.
So how old were you at that point?
Probably 8, 9, 10, around that age. Yeah,
so you had a couple of years playing outfield. Before then, it was taken away from you.
Mixed it up a bit at the start, and then when I was probably about 9, I decided to properly try and give it a go.
Right. So you started playing in goal at 9, and then you said you went to a couple of different Sunday teams. And you went to Leicester as a schoolboy. So how old were you when you went to Leicester?
I was 12, I think, 11, 12 when I went to Leicester.
How did that come about?
It came about playing a tournament, as you do on like a Saturday morning. And I sort of got asked to go in from there, and then various different training camps, trials. Probably took me 6 or 7 months to get signed with Leicester. And then, it was a great feeling when I did.
So you were on trial effectively then for 6 or 7 months?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, in a way, yeah. With loads of different training camps, just as they sort of narrow down all the thousands of kids they've got. And then I had a 6-week trial eventually. And after I did that, they decided they wanted to sign me.
Because one of the questions I get asked quite a lot is how do people prepare for a trial? So it's normally young kids, they're getting in there, they've been asked to go down to a club at A level, getting a little bit nervous, they're thinking about it a bit too much. And I said, how should I, or how did you prepare for that trial then? What sort of things should kids be thinking about?
Just enjoy it. I didn't think too much of it at the time. Obviously you're only young, so there's no reason to put any pressure on yourself or anything like that. Just go and enjoy it. That's really what I did.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually a question that came in specifically for you from Tom JW.1. And his question was advice to young players looking to go pro and to get into academies. So it's a little bit different than the trial question, but it's that. What should young kids who want to get into the game, who want to get into academies, what sort of advice would you have for those kids and those questions?
I think just enjoy it. Don't overthink it. Enjoy it. Don't worry about making mistakes or anything like that. I've made thousands of them when I was younger and still do now. So don't overthink any part of it at all. Just enjoy it. And if you're good enough, you'll get picked. If not, you'll try again or go on to something else. But just enjoy it, definitely. Look forward to going to the trial as opposed to feeling nervous or feeling like you want it to be over before it's happened. Just look forward to it. Embrace it, and hopefully it goes well, and if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world.
You just touched on mistakes there as well. I mean, that's something that I get asked a lot as well, is that, I mean, with goalkeepers, mistakes are often amplified, balls in the back of the net, you don't have that sort of pressure and you don't have that sort of emphasis on a mistake than any other part of the pitch as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
How do you mentally deal with that?
I think I've got better as I've got older.
You're 19, right?
Yeah, 19, yeah. So as I've got older and gone through the schoolboy age groups and the 14s, 15s, 16s, I definitely say I got better. I wouldn't say when I was a younger kid I dealt with mistakes pretty well, but certainly now I think I definitely do. I think it comes down to what type of person you are as well. But it's just about, just as you get older, just realising that you make mistakes and just dealing with it and cracking on.
So is there anything specific that you do in a game if you've made a mistake? Do you have a sort of a trigger? Do you have a moment? Do you have something? Or is it a case of, right, that's it, it's done?
No, just crack on. Body don't even really feel like a mistake at the time. You sort of in the game, so you've got the adrenaline going and everything else. Sort of afterwards you think, oh yeah, obviously that was a massive mistake in the game and that affected this, this and this. But I think it's more something to address after the game if you can, as opposed to during. I think you just got to crack on and just keep doing what you're doing.
Kind of play in the moment type thing.
Yeah, definitely. Play the 90 minutes or however long your game is, depending on how old you are, and crack on. Yeah, get on with it and then reflect afterwards. Don't do too much reflection. Even at half time, I don't think you should. Unless it's a tactical thing for the older lads that are playing 11-a-side and things like that. Unless it's something you can think about and change in your second half, for example, starting position or plays you're kicking to or anything like that. But if you've just dropped one or something like that, or one's got through your legs, that's nothing you can really change. Just crack on and then deal with it afterwards.
So do you, what about after the game? Do you have a review process that you go through at Coventry?
Yeah, so I'll, not after the game. Alid normally, certainly James as well, the two goalie coaches, I'd say they leave you alone a little bit after the game. Sometimes Alid will ask for your initial thoughts after the game when you're still emotional, and see how that differs from when you've calmed down and you can actually think properly. But I wouldn't say you do too much reflection right after the game. I mean, you'll have your chat with your coach and that's about it. And then you sort of go home, enjoy the rest of your day, and then certainly probably the next morning, or if you've got a day off the day after that, you'll look to review then as opposed to straight afterwards.
So if you've got a game Saturday, Sunday then you'll be your rest day, Monday you'll be in for a training session, but as part of that training session you'll have a kind of a review session.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I play Saturday and Sunday I'll do anything other than play football or think about football. I'll do something completely different, and then come Monday I'll be able to think on a fresh head of what I need to do for the week, what I did well, bad in the game, or it might even be a case you've got a game midweek as well. And if that's so, then your mind automatically probably goes to that game. So yeah, I don't like to reflect too soon after the game.
Yeah, so I mean, you've mentioned within that process, you've got Aled Williams, who's the head of goalkeeping down at Coventry, and he covers all the age groups. And yeah. James, I'm assuming that's James Algar.
It is James Algar, yeah.
Yeah, so he's the under. Is he? He's not the under-23 keepers coach.
Yeah, he does match days at the under-23s.
Does match days?
He plays at the academy with the 18s, but he'll come up for the odd session with the first team boys and the 23 lads.
Okay. So, just out of interest, how does your relationship differ between the goalkeeping contingent that's there and then either the first team or the 23 squad, whichever one you're involved in? How does that differ between the two? How does that work?
What do you mean? Sorry, I don't understand the question.
So you've got your review process and you've got your elements there with that specific goalkeeping coach.
Yeah.
But you're in a team of, say, it's the under-23s, or you're in the first team squad or whatnot, where there's the management there. There might be Mark Robbins, the first team manager, or whoever's in charge of the 23s, because you've got those guys as well within it. So how does your relationship go between the kind of team manager and then the goalkeeping coach within there? How does that work? What's the balance like there?
I think personally, with obviously Luke Tisdale is the 23s manager. Personally, I think maybe a lot of the time Luke feeds his information to Alid, and then Alid will feed it to me, and it sort of goes through there. Unless we're having a particular 6-week, 7-week review, in which Luke will obviously share his thoughts with me. But I'd say a lot of it does come through that, yeah. He'll speak to Alid, and then Alid will speak to me, and probably put it nicer than the way Luke's put it to Alid.
Okay. Right. I mean, just going back to stage, that's very much where you are now. You were talking about, you've just got into, you've gone through a trial process, then you've had a 6-week process trial at Leicester. Now you've been signed. How old were you when you got into then the system, then the academy system?
I'd say 12, I think, 12.
So you were 12 when you were there.
Yeah,
how long did you go through at Leicester for?
Until I was 16, so 4 years. 4 years, yeah.
And then how did the move to Coventry come about?
The move to Coventry came about. I didn't get a spot at Leicester, so I was told they weren't taking. I think they brought in a Polish lad. I think we just won the Premier League, so obviously that equals more money, and they're able to expand where they were looking. So yeah, they brought in a Polish lad, nice lad. And then, yes, I did get a spot at Leicester, and literally it was the next day I went and trained with Coventry. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was literally the next day. So it was sort of a difficult day there. But then also it was a chance to bounce straight back the next day.
Yeah, so did that just the case of, all right, thank you very much, but you haven't made scholar here, and then you got a phone call to go training with Coventry the next day. How did that work out?
So yeah, literally. So I did get a scholar, and then I got a call from Coventry, or it would have been my parents then because I was young. And they said, come in tomorrow, bounce back straight away from it. And that's exactly what I did. And I sort of had, I think it was a few training sessions there before they offered me a contract. And I sort of took it there and then.
And that was that for the 16s or the 17s?
It was for the, I signed my scholarship then. So it's for the under 18 season, but at the time I was an under 16, yeah.
Okay, right. So you were 16 in the F4, and now you've been at Coventry for about 3 years. So you've gone through the age groups there in terms of 18s to 23s, and you're involved in the first team now.
Yeah, so 18s, 23s, and then yeah, training wise, definitely sometimes with the first team, or certainly with the first team goalies.
So how's that step up then between 18s and 23s, and then from 23s into training with the first team?
I think 18s to 23s is a big step up because it's changing location as well. Because I mean, due to the circumstances at Coventry, the academy and first team and 23s are on different sites. So yeah, that's probably the biggest change, is changing location. Yeah, I'd probably say that's the biggest change.
What about in terms of quality?
Yeah, obviously the quality's loads different. I mean, obviously you go and train the 23s, they've all been given a pro contract there, so they must be doing something right. Yeah, so definitely the quality's loads quicker, loads faster. Definitely the small-sided games, legs will be burning after that because you're up, down, up, down. Yeah, definitely faster.
And then in terms of the goalkeeping training between the three elements, are there any differences in terms of the types of exercises, types of training that you'd go through with those various different ages?
I think when you got, certainly in the goalkeeper department, obviously you probably have a few more goalkeepers up at the lodge so you can do more stuff. And it's definitely faster tempo training with the first team goalies because you've almost got to keep up with them, especially as a young lad. So you've got to sort of keep up with their pace. You've got to make sure your service is right for them. But then you've also got to make sure that when you go in goal that you sort of do your thing as well as the stuff you need to do for them.
Just had a comment coming from Fabian. Fabian 1V, he says, I play for the academy. Liam, the goalkeeping coach, and James Algar would always tell me about you.
God knows what they say.
So just going back to that in terms of then the training within the first team, you as a 19-year-old training with the 23s and training with the first team, essentially, how did you step into that as the first time? Or how are you feeling then, and how was that experience for you?
I think, like, certainly, so sometimes as a scholar, I'd go up quite regularly. So I was sort of a young 17-year-old, and obviously that's quite daunting because you don't really know anyone up there. I'd only just joined the club, but then I definitely think as time goes on, as you have more and more sessions and you get to know the lads up there, it certainly becomes easier, and you enjoy it more.
When you're watching those guys train, because I mean, when you've got the first team goalkeeper there, you've got the reserve team goalkeeper there as whatnot. Are you kind of looking at their games, looking at what they're doing, trying to pick out what they're good situations they're being in and build that into your game. Is that the kind of mentality that you're going into those sessions with?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the main things I can probably look at with the current first team goalkeepers is their footwork. They're both really good with their feet. So that's definitely something I look at all the time, where they take the first touch, when they go first time, how they scan, how they see which players spare, when they decide that actually enough is enough and they push everyone up the pitch, or when they decide that actually, yeah, we can play here. So yeah, I think that's probably the main aspect I look at the current first team keepers is definitely their distribution and how they play out from the back.
So, and then what you've mentioned there a little bit is more around the decision-making process rather than the actual technical work that's involved within the goalkeeping.
Yeah, definitely decision-making. I mean, obviously your technique can always improve, but a lot of the time it's your decision-making of, well, like I said, when to pass, when to play first time, when to go long, when to play up to your striker, when to draw the pressure in, so then go long. There's loads of different decisions, that in loads of different ways you kind of playing out from the back end. Certainly Marco and Ben are definitely very good at that.
So just out of interest, because you coach as well for Scott and S1, don't you?
Yeah.
You're involved in there and you're getting high quality coaching there. How do you then, or how do those guys build? Because this is something where I am currently at the moment in terms of my coaching journey, is trying to introduce a hell of a lot more decision making processes within training. So it's rather not just in a technical practice. It involves keepers using their brains. How do you incorporate that, or how do they incorporate that?
I think certainly with the younger kids, I definitely do a lot more technique work with the younger goalkeepers, definitely, and more fun-based things. But certainly with a few of the older lads that are sort of playing 11 aside, certainly in terms of decision making with things like distribution, I'll get a lad to press from a different angle, or to press at a different speed, and that obviously affects whether they're going to play first time, what direction they're going to take the first touch in, whether they're going to long, play short. So yeah, I mean, even things like I'll put a cross in the box and then they've got to make a decision on whether they're playing straight away because they can see an opportunity, or whether they relax, take the time and let the team rebuild. And to be fair, a lot of that's done like by talking, as opposed to, because you don't have a lot of goalies each time. So it's a lot of just explaining the different decisions you're going to come to in a game, and then trying to practice them the best you can. But it's more than just understanding the processes and why you do certain things, than actually maybe sometimes practicing it.
Yeah. Going back to you and sort of your influences, then what were the goalkeepers that you were looking up to when you first started playing in goal? You were at that early age. Who were the goalkeepers that were your goalkeepers?
Well, I think obviously when I first signed for Leicester as a young boy, obviously you look at your first team goalkeeper with like stars in your eyes, and obviously that's Kasper Schmeichel. So I definitely think I looked up to him a lot, and obviously he's come through the lower leagues as well to get where he is now. So yeah, definitely probably him.
And then what about now?
Now I'll probably look at what's in front of me, to be fair, which is Ben and Marco. And I wouldn't say I have a particular goalkeeper I try and emulate or anything like that. I'd definitely probably look at them two, what they're good at, what I'm good at, why they are where they are, and why I am where I am, and seeing how I can improve.
Okay, I mean, this is a question coming from Joe MC 414. Says, who's the toughest opponent that you've ever played against?
Academy-wise, certainly when I was younger, as a young kid, was definitely West Brom. I think a lot of academy lads will say that. They're massive, big, strong. I think you were lucky to get away with less than a 6-0 defeat. Massive lads, 6 foot, 12-year-olds, big, strong. So yeah, definitely as a young lad, probably definitely West Brom. It's not a game I would particularly look forward to. But since being at Coventry, particularly good team we play. Leeds, very good. Very good side. Pass it. You always know you're going to be in a game with them. Teams like Charlton, again, big, strong. Difficult with them. You're probably going to get bushed around on corners. So yeah, they're probably two difficult games.
And how do you deal with that as a goalkeeper?
Again, I think it's something you get better at the more times you play against that opposition. You just find different ways to cope. Maybe you might have to punch a little bit more in terms of crossing. Maybe you might have to change your starting position to put the man off that's marking you. There's loads of different things you can do. But it's definitely about adapting in game. I think that's what the best goalkeepers do. They can adapt in game and deal with the problems that face them.
Scott's just put in the chat there, hit the gym. Is that something you need to do?
I've tried my best this year. I've done all right this year, actually.
Yeah,
it's definitely something I can keep doing.
And then going back to, it's kind of on the same route as toughest opponent, but this is about individual. This is from Lucas Bolton 7, who said, who's the best football player you've come up against?
Who's the best football player I've come up against? That's a difficult one, that.
We had Ian Lawler chatting about it, who's an Irish international in the 21s and had played against Messi. So you've got high, you've got high bar to hit there.
I don't think I'm going to match that. Best player I've played against. Probably in the. My football knowledge isn't that great, to be fair. So I don't always know the young lads coming through the academies. But certainly as a young lad at Leicester, players like Bobby Duncan, I'm used to play against Man City. Players like that. But like I said, I'm not always up to knowledge of who's coming through, to be honest.
Do you watch a lot of football outside of playing football as well? Are you kind of a 24/7 football kind of guy, or are you one of these people, now I play there type thing, and now I might come home and play a game of FIFA or something, but I'm not really too bothered about it? Where do you lie on that kind of continuum?
I do watch a bit. Definitely do watch a bit of the Premier League. But do I watch it religiously at football? No. But yeah, I certainly watch the Premier League on the weekend. Definitely on a Sunday, Super Sunday. That's definitely a bit of me. But I wouldn't say I watch loads of football.
Do you think that helps you? Because you've got some people who are absolutely in it and think that, they've got to be in it, but some people need just to have that step away from football, as if, this is what I do for a living, this is what I need to do, but I need to have that time away.
Yeah, I think everyone's different. Whatever suits them. Some players like to be absolutely on it all of the time. Some players have different ways. They like to relax more out of training and do things not to do with football. I probably think I'm a bit of both. Yeah, definitely a bit of both.
Keenan _Fallows, by the way, says Harvey Elliott is the best player that you've played against.
Oh, is it? I might have played against him. I don't know. I don't keep track, like I said. Maybe. He's probably right, to be fair.
One question that's coming in, which kind of leads nicely onto the bit which I'm sure Scott will be happy at, but at Sam Davies 432 asked the question, which gloves do you wear and why?
I wear the orange ones. I don't know what they're called, with the dotted palm. Black and orange ones, flat palm they are. I like them. The grip's good on them, definitely. Sticky. And they're a great fit. They're not too tight. I don't like my gloves too tight. So I definitely prefer the looser fit.
Just to elaborate to that. So Scott from S1 has kindly set up his chat. So you wear S1 gloves and you're wearing the flat palm, did you say?
Yeah.
So what is it about a flat palm that you like?
I just don't like that they're not too tight. Hate gloves that are too tight, and they're a little bit looser on your hands. And I feel like you can feel the ball as well. Whereas if they're too tight or too thick, I feel like you can't fully feel the ball. Okay.
You see, I really like a really snug fit. I like
most people do. To be fair, they like the really tight, but that's definitely not me. Not too tight.
No. Are you one of these people that would wear a really flashy glove? Or you were quite a plain kind of guy? Where do you sit on there as well?
I'd say probably more plain. To be fair, the black and orange ones aren't too plain, but yeah, they're not too flashy. But for me, it's more about comfort. I'm not too fussed how they look, if I'm honest.
So Rob McKenna's just putting again. I'm assuming they're the S1 Souls. They are.
Yeah, they are. That's what they are. Yeah,
They're the S1 Souls.
Yeah.
And then Scott's just put on there saying Tom's hands are like shovels. How big are your hands?
I wear size 11 in his.
Okay.
Yeah, size 11. I've got big hands.
That is massive. I mean, a kind of a normal hand size is kind of 9. Do you
Yeah,
find?
yeah.
I mean, this is a bit of a strange question, but do you find actually having bigger hands helps you?
No idea. I've always had big hands. I suppose it might make it easier to catch the ball, but no, I'm not sure. I don't know. Never had small hands.
Louis _AUB. I'm assuming he's a Coventry fan. Who's the best player at Coventry?
Oof.
That's a bit of a leading question, that is.
Best player at Coventry, I will go for this season, Liam Walsh in centre midfield. Yeah, definitely. He's been brilliant.
So he came from Bristol City.
Yeah, he's on loan. He's on loan, yeah.
He's on loan, yeah. Okay, why?
Great player, really, really good. Keeps it ticking. Can attack as well. Always does something on the ball. No, great player. Really good in training as well.
So, just out of interest in terms of how the season finished, what would be your preferred way for the season to finish?
Well, I think personally, obviously, the under-23s league's already been cancelled across Cat 1 and Cat 2, which is obviously for the safety of us all. But I'm not too bothered how it finishes, as long as we get promoted. Whether that means we play out our games or we do it on points per game system. As long as we get promoted, I'm not too fussed, to be fair.
Okay, how were you getting on with the 23s league?
We were second. Yeah, we were doing well, very well. We were looking like probably getting playoffs. So obviously it's disappointing, but at the same time, it is what it is.
And then how was your personal season?
Yeah, I've had a good season this season, I think. Done well. And obviously, it's out me a new contract at the end of it. So, yeah, it's definitely been a pleasing season.
Yeah, I read an article that said this was your breakthrough season.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, it's a good season. Yeah, I might have not read that article, to be fair.
And then in terms of your own personal future aspirations, what do you want to get out of the game? How far do you think you can go?
I always try and look to sort of next season. I don't try and think too far ahead. And next season, it's definitely about, for me, working my way through the leagues, getting myself some game time in league football, and definitely working my way up the leagues. And then when I do play 23s, it's about, like I mentioned earlier, it's about keep improving your footwork, passing, distribution, to try and almost catch up with the two lads in front of you, because that's obviously the ultimate aim.
So one thing we didn't touch on actually within your journey is your loan period that you had at Barnwell.
Yes.
So was that last season?
No, that was the very start of this season. Yeah, that was good.
So Barnwell are one division below National League South, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you got parachuted in to play a few games there. So how was that? Because that would be essentially, although 23s is obviously a good standard of football, this is what I don't know what it's classed as, open age football. This is men's football. This is, you're playing up against anyone and everyone, professional and semi-professional players, I'm guessing, within that group as well. So how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was good. I think I was there for a month. Played 5 or 6 games. Played a game in the FA Cup. Yeah, it was definitely good. Obviously, it's completely different to under-23s football. But yeah, it's certainly like matures you a little bit. And at the same time, it also makes you want to work harder to not play that level at the same time. Okay.
So what are the differences in the quality of football then between 23s and that?
I think 23s has just played a lot more on the floor. And obviously, sort of non-league stuff is probably a much more physical game. And the ball's in the air a lot more. There's more throw-ins. Ball's probably off the pitch a lot more than in the 23s game. Crosses get put on you all the time. Players are going to try and come through you. You probably don't really play out either. Probably more go long. So yeah, it's just two different styles of football, but each are probably is equally as important to be able to do.
Okay, I've got one final question. So I'd just like to give a little bit of notice to people who are in the chat at the moment, just in case they've got any further questions after my last question. So that's just a heads up for those guys. But my last question is, you can have a training session with 3 goalkeepers, you and 3 others. They can be from any era, any age. It's obviously those guys when they're at their prime. Who are you choosing?
I am going to go for David De Gea.
Solid choice.
Definitely David De Gea. I'm going to go for Petr Cech. And I'm going to go for Joe Hart.
Joe Hart's come up a lot, actually, that question. Why have you chosen those three? And in particular, why have you chosen Joe Hart?
I chose Joe Hart just because obviously he's been everywhere. He's been at the obviously highs of his career, and then before he knows it, probably the lows of his career. So you could definitely learn loads off him. Obviously he's English as well. So yeah, Joe Hart. Scott, I can see Scott. Can't believe I didn't make the cut. Jesus Christ.
So actually, Scott asked a couple of questions in the chat as well. His questions were, who's better goalkeeper, you or him? Was his first question. His other question was, who's the better coach, you or him? And now he said as well, who's the better keeper, who's the better two-touch king?
You know what, I'm going to tell him what he wants to hear, and I'm going to say he's the better goalkeeper, he's the better coach, and he's better at two-touch. I'm sure I'll make him happy saying that.
There you go. Scott, if you haven't already, I can take that audio clip for you.
Wow.
Put it onto you so you can use that.
Straight to his head, that will. Straight to his head.
All right, mate. Well, that's about 40 minutes in for that chat. There's some really good insights into how you've gone through the ranks there and how you're training with the first team and the differences between the different sessions. So thanks a lot for that. Scott has actually come back and said, cheers, mate, you're only speaking the truth. So
I have it every week, all week, so I'm used to it by now.
Yeah. Right, mate, thanks for that chat. Thanks for the insight. It's really appreciated.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
All right, nice one. Take care. Right, guys, that was Tom from Coventry for about 40 minutes or so, chatting to all the various different levels of football that he's played at, how he's become a pro, and also some nice little tips. There we go. Fabian Monville said tips for getting a scholarship in there. It was pretty good. Right, hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, it will be up on my YouTube page next week if you want to watch it. There are all the other ones within there as well. It'll also be up on Instagram TV. And as mentioned, so Scott from S1 is the person who set up all these different chats. Make sure if you do want a pair of gloves, go out and check out S1 and use the code ACW1. You get a little discount on there as well. Thanks everyone who's tuned in. Catch you all soon. Any questions for the next one, make sure you let me know on my Instagram stories. Right, take care. Speak to you all soon.